We've been going team by team and giving offseason outlooks for each of the teams in the NBA. And on today's episode, we're going to talk about the Los Angeles Clippers because the Clippers sit at a real crossroads in this. Do they keep trying to squeeze more runs out of the Kawhi Leonard and veteran core, or is it finally time to change the timeline for them and go younger, especially with having the number 5 overall in this pick and after trading for Darius Garland at the trade deadline? So we're going to talk about that, look at how a possible youth movement can happen for the Los Angeles Clippers and what a Kawhi Leonard trade could look like as well. We're going to get into all that plus more right after this.
Welcome to the number one place for your daily basketball news and analysis, NBA Central.
What's going on, basketball fans? Welcome to another episode of NBA Central, your number one spot for everything basketball and NBA related. I'm the host there, Haize, but more importantly, you guys can follow the channel at NBA Central Pod on every social media platform we happen to be on. With that said, let's go and get into this content for today, y'all. And so talking about the Los Angeles Clippers, one of the overarching biggest questions that you have is what do you do with Kawhi Leonard? The Clippers sit at a situation in this offseason where the biggest decision that they have in front of them is do they try to extend Kawhi Leonard or do they move on from Kawhi Leonard as a whole, trade him? And I just think that the Clippers personally, right? And of course, these episodes are on my personal opinion on these franchises. The conversation does not have to stop here. I wanted to live. Oh, and by the way, make sure you guys hit that subscribe button, by the way. I've noticed that there about 60% of our subscribers over here that watch us every video are not subscribed to the channel. Yeah, or watchers. So make sure you guys hit that subscribe button, subscribe to the channel. Okay, but with that said, the decision of what the Clippers decide to do with Kawhi Leonard is one of the most important things. So now this was a team that was above 500 last year, winning 42 games out and losing 40. But, you know, that's in no way enough to sit there and say that I think you should hold on to everything and just keep things pushing going forward. Now, with that said, the Clippers sit in an interesting point because of the 5th overall pick. And we'll talk about how that can play into whether they decide to make another push around Kawhi or decide to just rebuild around their youth. But the Kawhi Leonard conversation is the biggest one that they have to hear, right? Are they better off giving Kawhi Leonard another extension, or should they cash out while the value is ultimately high? Now, everybody would know the aspiration thing that's kind of hanging over the Clippers' head in regards to all this and how that could play a part into what they do. But Kawhi Leonard has 1 year left on his deal at $50.3 million next year, and Darius Garland also has a $42 million deal. Those are the biggest contracts on the Clippers' books. If you're able to move off that Kawhi Leonard contract, that does so much for you. Not to say that the Clippers are in a terrible financial situation. They're actually $46 million below the first tax apron and $59 million beneath the second tax apron. More on that in a minute here. But the biggest question is the Kawhi Leonard part of it, right? So the first side, the keep Kawhi side, let's start there, right? Kawhi is still playing at a really high level. When he's healthy, Kawhi Leonard is legit. There's no questions, no ifs, ands, or buts about that. He is still one of the better players in the league. He was 6th in the entire league in scoring last season at 27.9 points per game. He also chipped in 6 rebounds, almost 4 assists, and shot the ball over 50% from the field and 38% from 3. He also played in 68 games last season as well. Kawhi Leonard has only played over 60 games twice since leaving the Toronto Raptors. Twice. That's it, right? After winning a title with that Raptors team. So because he is still playing at such a high level, it does make a case that you should try to keep him because the chances that you get somebody better than Kawhi are slim to none, right? So you try to build quickly around him, Darius Garland. You have the number 5 pick. You have cap flexibility. So trading him could be looked at as more of a panic move where you can still build something legitimate. And because you do have that number 5 pick, you don't have to, rush your rebuild timeline. You have the pick, right? You came out of that trade with the Pacers. You send Zubac out, and you were able to still get the pick, even though it had those weird protections on it. So technically, you could draft number 5 overall, give it another year, see what you can do with Kawhi. You have, your full mid-level exception. You got some flexibility to make some moves, and you could do that. And then if it doesn't work out, Kawhi is a free agent at the end of the year. You walk away for that. So if anything, I think that because of Kawhi's and how good he still is, you can make a case for trying to keep Kawhi Leonard. Let's talk about the trade size of this. He's 34 years old. An over $50 million contract. He's on a different timeline than a lot of your young pieces as well. And with that said, he isn't the most healthy player, right? We just talked about it. He's played over 60 games only twice since winning a championship with the Toronto Raptors, which means that only twice since being with the Clippers has he done that, right? And I do think that, unless you're willing to overpay, this could be the cleanest way to reset for the Los Angeles Clippers, right? And then if you have a team that's thirsty for a star, like the Miami Heat, like the Golden State Warriors, those franchises that are hungry to get a star in that building, that's the cleanest way to get that done. The Clippers do not have to blow it up. I want to be clear. They are not like some of the franchises I've talked about in this series where I feel like they have to blow it up, but they do have to be honest with themselves. If Kawhi's timeline doesn't match the roster's future, or you just feel like in that timeline, you question if you can really get it done with the deals that are available to you, you have to have an honest conversation with that and move on from it. So with that said, what teams do make sense for Kawhi Leonard? I just named one of them. The Golden State Warriors are a team that makes sense for Kawhi Leonard. Now, are they going to try to make moves and swings other places? Yeah, right? And I'm not saying that a move with the Golden State Warriors necessarily is a move that puts them in a spot to where, you get the greatest assets back, but this is a Golden State Warriors team that already re-signed Steve Kerr. They've already signaled that they want to try to build a contender in Steph's time still there. And by the way, they have the 11th overall pick. Would they be willing to come off of that to get there? And that's the question that you have. If you're able to get the number 11th pick from the Golden State Warriors for Kawhi Leonard, and you have to take back even Jimmy Butler's bad money back, you absolutely do that. Now, I don't know if the Warriors are going to have or legitimately look to move on from that pick or not, but I do think this. Golden State is looking for an all-in move. Kawhi Leonard is an all-in move, right? So when you look at the reasons why the Warriors would do it, it is because the window's open with Steph Curry, right? And it's not forever, so Kawhi gives them a proven shot creator, an elite defender, and somebody who has championship experience, especially with Jimmy Butler coming back from a torn ACL at his age. Kawhi has injury concerns too, but you just saw him have a decent playoff. You just saw him have one of his healthiest seasons since winning the title, so there's that part of it. Now, why the Warriors may want to stay away from it is they already have health and age concerns. Why add another one? They have a chance at the 11th overall pick, which could set them up for their postseason lives without Steph Curry. And there could be a player like Yaxel Lindenberg available who actually is the best of both worlds for them. A rookie who's older and still has NBA-ready skills now that can actually fit in with their style of play as a two-way player, and they may just say, hey, let's take our bet on Yaxel fitting in with what we do rather than go after a $50 million player like Kawhi Leonard. So there's that part of it as well. So giving up major assets for an aging star would leave them further stuck without a future that they've already had questions on if they're going to have. If you're Golden State, the question's simple when it comes down to it. If you're trying to win one more ring while you have Steph, while you have Steve Kerr, are you trying to avoid the bill that comes with chasing another ring, or are you willing by any means necessary, willing to pay if that means that it makes you feel like you are in a spot to truly contend for a title in Steph Curry's time there? And that's the question that it comes down to that, right? So there you go. That is one of the best teams that could trade. Like I said, the Miami Heat are another team. Would the Phoenix Suns do something like that? I doubt it. They've talked about having patience, but that's another team. But I think that those are the two that you're looking at. The Miami Heat are a team that's going to be looking for a star. If they strike out on Giannis or something else, could they pivot towards Kawhi Leonard? That's the question you have to ask yourself there. They don't have the same draft capital as like the Golden State Warriors do with the 11th overall, but it is a team that does have future picks they can put involved. You can try to stack the deck and hope by the time those future picks come available, the Miami Heat aren't a good basketball team. So you have that to look at, right? But then the part in this that I think you have to look at as well is making a trade yourself to try to re-up and build that contender around Kawhi Leonard. One of the rumors that has been out there for the Los Angeles Clippers is Cam Johnson. Now, Cam Johnson had a very rough season with the Denver Nuggets, right? Actually ended that, I think, pretty strongly with, the last playoff game that he played there as well. So you have to look at that part of it. But if they do want to try to add some talent around this now, we know the Denver Nuggets could be looking to dump off of Cam Johnson so that they can re-sign Peyton Watson. Is that a player that looks for it, right? You look at one of the Clippers' needs, right? A plug-and-play complementary player to go around that can play for with Kawhi Leonard. I do think when you look at that, Brett Siegel floated this around that the Clippers are interested in Cam Johnson, who would be made available by the Denver Nuggets after their first-round exit by that. So what would that trade end up looking like if you're the Los Angeles Clippers? Brett Siegel speculated that a potential Clippers move for Cam Johnson would, it would hinge on Kawhi Leonard, and his last contract and what they decided to do there. So that's the first thing there when it comes down to it. But they could offer Nicholas Batum and Bogdan Bogdanovic in a trade for Cam Johnson, right? I do think when you look at it, Cam Johnson has really struggled to kind of have a solid role here with this Clippers team. He had hamstring injuries over the course of this season, which limited him to 23 games played and 19.7 minutes per game, both career lows for him. But even then, when he was healthy, he didn't really get many opportunities even being on that second unit. With him being 33 years old, it could be, an average. He only averaged 7.4 points on 38.8% shooting. Those are completely downgrades, but maybe you're able to do something in regards to that. A change of scenery, some other things. You get a role player around Jokic, those type of things. Nicholas Batum played in 74 games for the Clippers. He averaged 4 points. But again, if that's something that can help you get there and add some veteran presence for the Nuggets, and you can get Cam Johnson, it will make some sense. I do think Cam Johnson fits their team to a degree, right? And like I said, like in 54 games, Cam Johnson, 12 points, the lowest since his second year in the league, 3.8 rebounds, 2.4 assists in 30 minutes. He would have a much larger role with the Clippers, and I do think he would have a chance to go back to what he looked like before he signed with the Los Angeles Clippers. So Cam Johnson is one of those moves that you could look to make if you want to re-up around Kawhi Leonard and try that. But if you decide to go even a step further with it, the number 5th overall pick, would the Clippers really think about moving that pick if they felt like it's a move that makes them a championship contender, right? And that's a question. Should you move or take the number 5 pick? That is the next question here for the Los Angeles Clippers. My personal opinion, you don't move that pick. I don't think by any means necessary, even if you want to take an NBA-ready prospect, I don't think that you move the number 5 overall pick, in my personal opinion. Even if you think, hey, we want to try to win the title with Kawhi, I don't think you do that, right? So the question then becomes about who can you take with that pick? And this is what it opens up some. I think there are a number of different cases that you can make for it, right? You did trade for Darius Garland, but I will say this, is that Darius Cuff, a guy that people think is the best player outside that top 4, you sit right there. And then I say this, if a team decides to get fancy in the top 4 and maybe take not a player that's there in the top 4, you have a chance to get one of those guys too. So let the draft board talk to you. But assuming that the top 4 goes the way that it's supposed to go, so AJ DeBonsa, Darren Peterson, Caleb Wilson, Cam Boozer, they all get taken in the top 4. You have a chance at Darius Cuff, right, who is a very flawed defensive player, but the offensive upside is legit. The star power upside is legit there, right? So you may want to take a shot at that. Now, I don't know how much that helps you initially with Darius Garland still being on your roster and you having Kawhi Leonard, but that is a player that has, whenever you decide the dust settles on this Kawhi Leonard situation, that is a player that has an opportunity. But then you can also look at some players that could actually help you try to win a title now. Ademar is a guy that has really good upside, but I think his floor is extremely high as well. And after losing Zubac, that's a player that fits right into that space that's left there, that you can come in, could be your starting center right away, and help you win basketball games right away. Now, of course, you have the same type of issues. The rotational big, the lateral quickness, those type of things are there and a concern. But I think overall, Ademar could be a good option here at number 5 as well for the Los Angeles Clippers. But then the other players as well. Keaton Wagler, he's probably the most clean fit next to Darius Garland, that you have 2 high-scoring guards in regards to that. Now, doesn't do a lot defensively. I think Keaton Wagler has more upside defensively than some people are giving him credit for. But the size, the shooting, the versatility, the plug-and-play ability of a Keaton Wagler could make a lot of sense for that Los Angeles Clippers team for the now and for the future. Same thing with Mikal Brown Jr. as well. A dynamic scoring guard, huge upside as a shooter as well. But there is still some risk attached to him, and that could definitely be looked at as a reach as well. And then the last part that you can do with it, maybe you trade back. You pick up more assets. You still get a hell of a player when it comes down to it. Maybe you trade back and you take a Yaxel Lindenberg a little bit earlier than the Golden State Warriors can. Maybe you trade with the Milwaukee Bucks at number 10. So there's options to do there with number 5, even if you decide to keep the pick, to do both, right? Try to win now, get a player that can help you win now, while also setting yourself up to have some flexibility in the future as well. And that brings us to where we get with all these teams and talking about their offseason outlook is the situations, right? Well, the biggest question here for the Clippers is, what do you do with Kawhi? That's the first thing. Once you answer that, everything else kinds of get more. What you do with the draft, all that type of stuff. For what it's worth, the Los Angeles Clippers have a fairly clean cap sheet for a team that has a player making over $50 million with it, right? You have that part of it. Kawhi is, of course, extension eligible, but you have you're ready to go younger if you decide to do so. One of your questions is, what happens with Darius Garland? How do you view him? But then outside of that, Benedict Mathurin, a restricted free agent this year. Do you sign and trade him, get more assets? Do you try to re-sign him? His market value is probably going to be decent, right? So you would have to look at that. But if you draft a player like Keaton Wagler or something like that, you may just let Ben Mathurin walk away, or like I said, a sign and trade, right? You have your defensive anchor and Chris Dunn, who does want to remain, who they want to retain on a team-friendly deal. I think he's shown a lot as a veteran and a defensive player there. And then you have John Collins, right? Currently the only actual power forward on this roster who's an unrestricted free agent. But then again, I don't know how much, like, there's been reported mutual interest to bring those guys for them to come back together. But I don't know, depending on what you decide somewhere else, right? Bradley Beal is a huge question in this as well, right? Because he's a player that, if you talk about making moves with the 2-year, $11 million deal that he signed, he can be looked at as a salary dump candidate to help facilitate some other deals. The Clippers have surprising flexibility in what they want to do this offseason, right? $39 million beneath the luxury tax, which affords them some ability to do some stuff. They have team options on veterans like Bogdanovich at $16 million, Brook Lopez at $9 million, Batum at $5.9 million. So you can create another $70 million in cap space if you decide to do so. So therefore, the question for the overall offseason outlook for the Clippers comes down to this: retool or rebuild? And that's a question. I don't think they can just run it back. You have to do something. And that question is going to be very interesting to see what the Clippers come up with this season, or this offseason, I should say. But that's going to do it. That's my time for today. Thank you guys for tuning in to another episode of NBA Central. The Clippers offseason is very unpredictable, but I want to hear from you guys in the comment section down below. What do you think the Los Angeles Clippers should do with their roster, with the future, with Kawhi, and the number 5 overall pick? Let me know what you guys think on that down below. Make sure you guys like the video, subscribe to the channel as well. You can follow us at NBA Central Pod on every social media platform. You can also send us any feedback, questions, comments, concerns. NBA Central Pod at gmail.com. And lastly, if you want to leave a text message and our voicemail for the mailbag, the number to do so, 773-270-2799. We are the number 1 spot for everything basketball and NBA related. And I'll catch you guys the next time I feel like making a video. Probably tomorrow. Peace, y'all.
Been a presentation of the Breaks Media.